and welcome everyone to the April New York Enterprise Tech Meetup Gone Global. As you may have heard from today's music, we have New York on our mind today, a little bit even more than normal. UiPath went public today at over $30 billion valuation. DigitalOcean went public a few weeks ago, and we're so amped to have their CEO Yancey join us today with Sameepa from CNBC. And rounding things out, we have Andre from Treno, a New York-based startup who's going to kick us off with the demo this afternoon. Needless to say, New York enterprise tech is thriving. And as vaccine rollout improves, we can't wait to see so many of you in person again. For anyone who doesn't know me, I'm John Lair. I'm a co-founder of Workbench. We have our whole team on the line as well. And we're an enterprise-focused VC fund based here in New York City. We're investing in $3 to $6 million rounds, and really we're obsessed with all things enterprise go-to-market and sales. As context for newcomers in the audience, this meetup is 9.5 years old. We've been running this almost every single month over that period, and we bring together what we love to call the suits and the hoodies of the world, AKA the corporates from Fortune 500s, those executives from IT departments. We have startup founders. We have operators working at startups of all stages, and we have tons of investors and grad students rounding out the rest of the group. So really glad to have everyone with us today. I'm going to turn over to Kelly to kick things off with us.
Thanks, John. Before we begin, a few reminders. For the tweeters in the room, our hashtag is NYETM, so be sure to tweet away and tweet often. You can view all of the videos from past meetups on the Workbench YouTube page, including today's session. So be sure to subscribe and smash that like button. And we'll leave time for audience Q&A. So please throw your questions into the chat. And with that, it's my pleasure to introduce Andre Hill, CEO and founder of Treno. Treno helps software organizations deliver more, release faster, and continuously improve. Over to you, Andre.
Thanks, everyone. Let me apologize. I didn't know that we would be playing Jay-Z, so you probably saw me dancing a little bit, and I definitely need to apologize for that. But before I get started, let me first thank the crew at Workbench. Every time we connect, good things happen. Pre-pandemic, it was a startup CEO dinner, and now this. So to the team, thank you. I also am fully aware that I'm just the appetizer today, and I need to get out of the way so that we can hear Yancey and the story of DigitalOcean. And while I don't know their entire story, I can probably pretty much guarantee that one of their drivers to success was the fact that they had success and excellence in the engineering organization. And that's really something that every enterprise strives for. But as most of you know, it's really difficult to get that excellence in engineering. 70% of software, McKinsey said that about 70% of software projects either fail altogether or end up over time or over budget. And this is in the enterprise. And that's why this quote here, this Tetris quote, really resonates with me. When I was running an engineering team at Oracle, or when I was the CTO of a successful startup, there were times that no matter what my team did, we just struggled. And we didn't do a really good job in releasing quality software. And it was even harder to figure out the underlying issues and how to improve the team or the process so that the problems never happened again. Solving that problem is exactly what Treno is doing. We're a SaaS-based instrumentation and observability platform for the software engineering process. That sounds cool, but what does it mean? Well, similar to what a Datadog or New Relic does when they monitor an application in production, letting you know when it's not performing up to standards, or what a fire hydrant or an incident response tool does when they spot a DevOps issue and they implement a run book, a series of actions designed to solve the problem. We do the same thing for software engineering. Treno is telemetry and run books for software engineering. Here's how it works. I won't go through all those bullet points, but we connect to the data that your team generates during the software development lifecycle, and we learn how your team builds and releases software. We then recommend delivery standards for speed, quality, and output. And whenever a particular project falls below those standards, we identify why, and we generate a playbook, our equivalent of a run book, that guides you through your team through solving those problems and also improving your future capabilities. There's lots more, but I am not going to PowerPoint you to death, so let's go ahead and move to a demo. As I mentioned before, for us, it all starts with the data. The more you connect, the more signals that our model receives. In this example here, I'm actually connected to a code repo, 2 project management instances, an error tracking software, and then application performance monitoring. But as you can see, we've got connectors that will connect up to almost anything in the software development lifecycle. And once we connect up, instantly, our system looks back at the past way that your teams have been delivering, and our model comes back and creates a baseline. We then recommend standards, delivery standards, which you get to approve for each team and project. And that's what this looks like. What you see here are the teams that are in this engineering organization. You see the standards that have been set, organization delivery targets. We've set a target for them. And you see how each team is actually delivering across those standards, things that are set across the organization, and then things that are specific to each individual team. Now, you also see at the top here something we call Treno scores. And what these are specifically calculated indicators of the most important things around how a team or a project is performing. They're normalized. So we actually asked our customers, and we have customers using them today, as an SLA with a line of business. Mr. Customer, don't worry about it. As long as my speed stays above 72, your project's going to be out on time. Don't worry about output. As long as us getting everything done, as long as our output is above 65, we're going to be okay. So this becomes kind of the uptime equivalent between software engineering organizations and the business organizations. Let me dive in a little bit. First thing you see when you look here is that at the top you see initiatives. These are basically goals that are set for this particular engineering team. Now, many organizations will have an OKR tool. If you do, as you see here, we can import from it. But if your organization doesn't have one, or if your OKR tool is not good enough for the technical goals that you have, we can actually allow you to create your goals here and then merge metrics with them so you can really see how the progress is going for engineering related projects. Let me dive in a little bit more into the projects. Now, as you see here, this is almost the same exact view. You can see that each project has a particular target set, and orange means, again, that we're not meeting our target. Blue means that we're below our threshold. Digging in a little bit to this particular team, you see that you see the one numbers or the Treno scores we talked about earlier. And down here for you stats geeks, you see all the metrics that we were able to actually generate from the connected tools. The more tools you connect, the more visibility that we can give you. Now, if you're a person that really is interested in these things, you can go through it down, and let's just pick one of these, and we'll show you the relationship between these two, because really what's most important is not the individual numbers. What's most important is really the relationship between metrics. So I'm going to see if I can find one or two that makes sense to look at. And I can see the relationship between how long it takes to do a code review and the overall getting a product out the door. Again, we give you 1 year visibility, but that's interesting, but that's not really the core of Treno. The core of Treno is really understanding the monitoring. Again, as we said, like Datadog or like a New Relic, we're constantly looking at everything that happens during the development process, and we'll spot any issues that come up. In this case, there's an issue that came up with speed. We have identified that there's a code review issue with people looking code reviews. And if you want to, you can actually say, help me solve this problem. You solve this problem by creating a playbook. In this case, we've created one for you. And the playbook will actually guide you through step by step what you should do to your team to increase your speed from 70, these are those Treno scores, to 75. Here, we know exactly where you're starting, we know what the target is, and then every single few days, we'll actually coach the owner of this playbook about what you should do to implement this across your teams. Finally, I'm going to show you check-ins. What we do with check-ins at Treno is that we send an email out, or through your instant messaging tool, we ask everybody who's on the project. This is from product managers to engineers to the executives. How do you think the project's going? You get kind of this lollipop bar where things are, you get all the details, but really most important, you get this anecdotal information and you can merge it with the real metrics of what's going on. So the goal is to give you a real view of how things are actually going, and be able to create, if you want to, you can create a playbook for an organization for this quarter. I want us to get better at doing something. So there's a lot more for me to show you, but I know I've got a limited time here. So let me stop here and ask if there's any questions. I see there's a couple of something in the chat, but before that, let me actually notice something as well. Again, our goal is to help teams build better, to release faster, to reduce the errors. And we're based in New York. We're actually hiring right now. So if anyone is a Go backend developer, we've got a job for you. And I see a question. How long did it take for us to build the platform? Crystal, we're actually still building it. So we're never done. But we launched the company in 2019. We actually put our first code in the ground a week before the shutdown in New York. We've released a couple versions of it. So the initial version of this came out probably 5 to 6 months after we first started coding. Let's see.
And Andre, I think you may have seen the question before about how does this compare to other engineering metrics dashboards out there in the market?
Adam, thank you. There are a lot of engineering metric tools out there, but if you notice here, we have the metrics, but they're really used for us to make decisions about running projects today and in the future. Most analytics tools look backwards and they tell you how you did last week or 2 weeks ago. And that's interesting, but I can tell you as being a CTO and running a team at Oracle and running a team at SUSE Linux and Dell, that's really not that important to me. What's important is I've got problems today and moving forward. So we don't see ourselves as a metrics and analytics tool. We actually see ourselves as an operations platform. But how do you actually manage your projects today? Crystal's asked, do we have paying customers? We do have a paying customer. We actually have just finished, thanks for the prompt. We actually just finished our design phase, and now we're in what we're calling our extended beta phase. So you can go to Treno.io. It sounds like it spells like it sounds, and join our beta right now. Yancey has a great comment here about engineering productivity is the top of mind for him also. It looks like a great tool. I love to get this in front of our CTO. Yancey, I got your email. We will connect. John asked a great question about what type of customers are we looking for. Our ideal customer for our beta is a mid-sized to enterprise-sized engineering team. And that's usually if you've got developers of 15 to 1,500 we can work with. And we want you to have at least a project management tool of a Jira, or a Rally, or a Clubhouse, and then using a standard code repo. And if you're cloud-based, we can pull that as well. Question about what phase of development should a team look to engage your platform? Well, since I want to sell the product, I'm going to say at the earliest phase possible. Really, the answer really is when your projects, what you find in the enterprise, or at least I did, is that once your team gets above 20, 25 engineers, maybe you're running 5 or 6, 7 projects, that's hard to keep all that in your head. And once you reach that problem, that's an issue that you're going to have to, that's when you're going to have to start identifying how do you deal with the productivity issues, and more importantly, how do you get better going forward? So really, once you start running large projects with large number of teams, you need a tool like Treno. John asked a question about how quick is onboarding.
And Andre, I just want to say, probably have time for maybe 1 more or 2 more questions.
All right, let me do onboarding, and then we'll do the one right after that. Onboarding, it's a very good question. Of all the customers that we've onboarded right now, they have averaged 15 minutes of onboarding. We're actually rolling out self-service onboarding starting in 2 weeks. So we've really made it very simple for you to connect up, then you merge your projects and teams together, and then go forth and prosper.
Last one. And
yes. Perspective books developed with retrospective coupled with go forward. Good summary. Yes, that is a good summary of what a playbook is that we actually identify what the issues are, tell you how to do it, and then we actually give you reports that allow you to do retros about how well your team is doing and how great you're getting, how good you're getting in the future. I got other questions, but Kelly's going to stop me and he knows where I live. So.
I was just going to say that thank you, chat. Many awesome questions here. Andre, please put your contact information in the chat so that everybody can get in touch with you after this. But thank you so much for the demo.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you so much, Andre. And we're going to switch gears now to our fireside chat. We are so amped to have Sameepa Shetty from CNBC with us to lead today's fireside chat conversation. Sameepa currently produces for CNBC, and she just launched a new show for them called Tech Check, which is an unapologetically tech-focused hour. She interacts with the best and brightest in the field, and she's a no-holds-barred interviewer. So buckle up for what's going to be a great conversation.
I love this setup. I feel like I'm walking into something that's going to be extremely dramatic. But before we get any place, John, thanks for that very, very kind introduction. And congratulations to y'all for celebrating almost a decade of bringing New York's best and brightest in enterprise technology to the forefront and to people's views and attentions. Andre did an excellent job. Yancey already has him in mind for future things. So this is how sparks fly. This is how connections are made. But before we go anywhere, I think we all collectively are here to talk and learn more about cloud. But let's take a moment to kind of understand how seminal a day today has been I don't know if you all noticed, but just mere associating with a cloud company can make a stock pop as much as 10%. What I'm talking about is the announcement this morning between Dish Networks and Amazon. For the very first time, an industry as reticent as telecom has decided to go full-fledged into the public cloud atmosphere. So that really tells you how far the bet on public cloud has come. And it really validates the whole essence of our next company, which is, of course, DigitalOcean. And the CEO, Yancey Spruill, is with us. Yancey, how are you?
I'm doing well. Good to see you.
Is it freezing in Colorado today?
It is cold and gray and snowy in Colorado today.
Crazy. It's gray right outside my window right here in New York. But thank you, technology. We are doing this via Zoom and all of you can chime in. I think it's going to be a power pack conversation. Please feel free to keep questioning us. Don't wait for the Q&A section. As questions come in, I'm more than happy to present them in front of Yancey, because the point is for this conversation to lead to something productive for everyone involved, right?
Yeah.
All right. Just picking up from my intro right there, Yancey, when you started this, or rather, when this company was started 10 years ago, this was started with the developer as its center and simplicity as its focus. 10 years later, the cloud infrastructure and ecosystem has gotten so complicated. Are you guys still the simplest cloud play for a small and medium-sized enterprise?
Well, what I would say is that we absolutely are still focused on simplicity. That's core to our value proposition. And we're still focused on developers, but lo and behold, 10 years later, lots of those developers, tens of thousands of them, we have 600,000 approximate customers today, but tens of thousands of those developers have actually started real businesses. And so we've expanded our focus to span developers and up to small entrepreneurs, small and medium-sized businesses, but we are committed 100% to simplicity. We actually had a monthly business review this morning, and we were talking about the various issues with product launches, and we always talk about it has to maintain simplicity. That's vital to us in terms of, startup founders don't have time. They can't call IT on the 8th floor and say, hey, come up here and fix this problem. They are IT. They are the marketing, and so the product has to be simple, and that's a core aspect of us. We'll never abandon it, and it's still front and center to us today.
How do you measure it, though? I'm curious. Like when you're sitting up there in your perch as CEO, how are you measuring simplicity for a regular person who has, or a startup entrepreneur who has no sense of how to set up back-end infrastructure, right? How do you measure that?
Well, I mean, in the time we've just been joined the conversation here, you could be up and running as a paying customer at DigitalOcean. It's that quick. It's that easy. We have documentation. We get 5 million people, actually more than 5 million people a month, come to our website to read our documentation, read our tutorials, learn, even if they're not customers of ours, and they learn about how to get breakthroughs on their tech stack. And so how do we measure it is just in terms of NPS, Net Promoter Score. We've maintained, very proud of the fact that it's been north of 60 for many, many, many years now. If you look at the typical software company, that number, it's about twice what the typical, customer satisfaction, if you will, with the product experience. So we do measure it very formally. We measure other stats as well to keep a pulse on it. I talk to as many customers. I can't talk to all 600,000, unfortunately. I don't have enough time in the day, but I talk to as many as I can each week. And I want to hear that the experience that as we launch new capabilities, that we're maintaining what Ben Moisey and our founders were thinking 10 years ago about why they started the company. They started the company because AWS was getting such incredible traction a decade ago, but they were focused on moving that multi-trillion dollars of legacy IT infrastructure that was complex into their cloud because they were better at running it. And rightly so. That's a majority of IT spend is in enterprise. And what they noticed was that in the managed service business that was the predecessor to DO, that the cloud would be massively beneficial to early stage businesses who didn't have DevOps or IT expertise. And so that's why we founded the company. And that's why simplicity and customer support were at the foundational core to the value proposition. It lives on today.
So if I heard you correctly, onboarding is as fast as a minute, 55 seconds, if I remember correctly.
Give or take, but very quick, very easy to be up and running as a customer.
So if there are, right now in our audience, if there are startups, founders, or even people who are thinking about starting something, and they have this grandiose vision of having an enterprise cloud service, but they have a startup budget, can you break it down and explain how DigitalOcean solves for that?
Well, we offer virtualized computers. So instead of in the old days, an early stage company, you'd buy the computers, you'd buy network gear, you have to set up in a closet all the IT infrastructure, you'd have to layer security software and all the other applications just to be up and running. And that could have cost thousands of dollars, maybe tens of thousands of dollars to put all that in place. And you had to have somebody do that. Well, we start at $5 a month. You have access to one of our more than 25,000 computers. You can rent just a portion of it. You don't need to get the whole computer. You can get access to the internet. You can, we have data centers all over the world, and you only have to rent the portion that you need. So you're up and running. And that's what we started with. We've added a number of software applications and services that, as our customers go from 2 developers with an idea to companies with tens of people, hundreds of people, their workflow evolves. So we've added more services, but at its foundation, you're renting our expertise. We take care of the computer infrastructure, making sure that it all works, that it's all networked, that it's responsive, that it has security built in, that it's reliable. We take care of all that, and you just pay a very small fee. And so you're up and running quickly, and we take care of a lot of the issues that you'd have, 20 years ago was a massive barrier to starting a company, because you had to have capital just to be in the business of writing the software apps. You had to have people and talent, and that's before you're even creating your application. We heard earlier, as Andre was talking about creating his application, he could do that in the cloud like this, versus having to taking 2 years just to get the IT infrastructure up and running.
So that's the interesting part that you mentioned right now, right? So as a developer, I think any developer just dreams about writing code and setting up their company. Who wants to think about the backend infrastructure mess, right? And as you have grown in the last 10 years in the evolution of DigitalOcean, you've gone past the storage, network computing onto services, right? So you mentioned earlier on, I think when the IPO was being filed, that you plan to add more managed databases in terms of your services. Where have you reached? What are you offering?
Well, we have the traditional database as a service tools, the Redis, Postgres, MySQL.
Yeah.
We're in beta with Mongo today, and hope to have that launch. And we'll add more database as a service. The 3 we have today are excuse me, what most people use for database services. And they're vital to customers. Early stage customers can keep track of their customer and their analytics in an Excel spreadsheet. You start getting hundreds of customers, thousands, you need a database tool that allows you to do more sophisticated analytics. And so it's part of our strategy to start with a basic compute network and storage, typically called infrastructure as a service, and evolve that over time to platform services that decouple from the infrastructure, give more productivity tools. So that's vital to our strategy. If you looked at DigitalOcean, 2 or 3 years ago, we would have had 0% of our revenue beyond the core infrastructure. And, we exited last year as about 10%. It's growing rapidly. And it's a core part of our strategy to serve not only the breadth of developers through entrepreneurs and small and medium-sized businesses.
To be clear, though, a bunch of your money is still being made through the droplets and through cloud storage, right? And clearly, you guys are doing something brilliantly right, because you've added about 70,000 customers in the last 2 years, and about 70% of them come from outside the US. So clearly, your customer base is price sensitive.
We have this incredible go-to-market, what we call self-serve marketing. And so I mentioned earlier that we generate 5 million visits to our website every month.
That's because of your bet on content.
Right. And so we have all this content that's core to, what we call community. and investing in the global community of entrepreneurs and developers, learning and growth. They come to DigitalOcean to learn and to grow, to get unstuck on a problem, and they explore the website and they become customers. And that's our route to market. It only costs us 10% of revenue for sales and marketing spend. That's about a fifth of what the typical early stage software company spends on sales and marketing. So it's very efficient. It helps us live our values by promoting community, and it's global. And if you're an engineer, a software developer in Ghana or in Vietnam, and you have a question about how to do XYZ in Python, you know, that's a global question. And you go to Google and you type in, how do I do XYZ? We come to the top of the search results because so many people click through and come to our site. And that's how we get to build these relationships, really high engagement with customers or potential customers at really low cost. So highly efficient. The beauty of our business is we're on a path to 50 million or so software developers globally by the end of this decade. There's 35 or 40 today. There's over 100 million businesses in the world today. And there's adding to that 14 million net new businesses are created. So you're talking about logos of over 150 million globally dispersed. And so the beauty of our business model is it's highly efficient to attract those people to us. And the other issue with early stage businesses, they don't spend a lot of money. And so you better be efficient at attracting them to the platform. So we have both. We have this content strategy, this community strategy that brings people here from all over the planet. And we have a low cost way of doing that. And that's important because, you know, our average customer, you know, exiting last year was about $600 a year. And so, you know, that's very different than the enterprise model where they're getting millions of dollars per customer. We're attracting and serving with world-class infrastructure and products at a really low price point.
Now, here's one of our listeners is a prospective on the fence DigitalOcean customer. I'm going to get the first question. This is fascinating. Please tell us how you are going to deploy your newly found capital to address the GPU and deep learning market, because they really, really want to leverage DigitalOcean for those workloads. But the lack of GPU for years now has made them stick with AWS and Google Cloud. What are you doing, Yancey?
This is a high priority for us in terms of the product areas. We are investing a lot of time. We're working with certain customers and with certain of the hardware vendors. It's a top of mind focus area for us in terms of new product categories that we're going to invest in. And so stay tuned, but we are actively working on a solution for GPUs. Again, it's got to be simple. It's got to solve the needs for these early stage businesses. And it's going to be a core value proposition that we offer on our infrastructure, but it also enables AI, you know, artificial intelligence, which we also would like to add as a capability on the platform to help earlier stage businesses go faster.
So that's the thing. In the competitive landscape is getting so cutthroat that even with AI, you already have no-code AI. Companies like C3.ai, or now just C3.ai, are public. So what's the timeline for you as you're looking to deploy this GPU solution? Because if it's not quick enough, then you die.
Well, you know, most people in the cloud are multi-cloud. After, you know, early stage, you know, the early stage developers, you know, they onboard, they testing code, trying to launch that idea into a company. They're probably solo cloud. So they're doing that on DigitalOcean. But as people get more customers, they get more diversified, more global, they need more services, they tend to go multi-cloud. We actually embrace that. It's part of simplicity. If you think about legacy technology, go back 50 years and how all the business models have evolved in the IT world, it's always been about complexity. It's always been about the lock-in, about tightly locking people into the hardware-software relationship. And as software becomes more of the content in tech versus the de-emphasis of hardware, you know, cloud has enabled people to be more flexible. And so that's core to our value proposition. So we are going to add tools. We're not going to add so many tools that we become much less distinguishable between us and the big cloud. So
Yeah.
we're always going to have a simple set of tools. And that's fine, because that's what early stage companies need, small, medium-sized businesses. We're focused there. And if people want best of breed, I was talking to a couple customers recently that are early stage businesses. You know, one of them says, well, you know, you're not going to be all of our spend because we like this tool on this vendor, but you're going to be a lot of our spend because it's the core infrastructure. That's fine with us. And why that customer was delighted at DigitalOcean, we made it easy for them. We didn't make this false choice that a lot of big tech companies have done for decades, which says either you stay with us or we're going to make it really painful to use anyone else outside of our ecosystem. We're the opposite of that. So we're going to add the GPU type capabilities and AI tool. You know, the key for us is simplicity in the product experience and the integration. That's how we will lock, if you will, and the hook to get our customers to adopt more products. We've done it with the Kubernetes and the database services in our marketplace, and we've seen huge adoption internally because of that simplicity and our commitment to support.
That's fascinating. So for whoever asked that question, it is coming. And believe you me, when it comes, it's going to be as easy as apple pie.
Yeah.
If not, you know where to find Yancey.
Come on over to DigitalOcean. Come on.
All right. So you mentioned something very interesting, that the legacy of legacy infrastructure was the whole lock-in and complexity of it all. Great. You're open, you're cloud, you're flexible. But I did notice that you as a platform have made a big bet on Kubernetes, right? A bunch of your services are evolved around it. Now, as the world changes, as startups, founders, entrepreneurs change, they're born into this digital native cloud world and they choose to go serverless. How are you diversifying your bets if the future of, you know, technology is not focused and centered around Kubernetes? What then? What else are you looking at?
Yeah, well, Kubernetes obviously has had massive adoption. And so in being responsive to our growing business customers who, you know, are standing up multiple engineering teams, et cetera, they need better deployment tools. So Kubernetes has been incredibly exciting over the last 2 years. You know, we got that product, thousands, tens of thousands of customers really, really quickly because of the demand. But last fall,
can I
to
actually
your point
pause
on,
you there? Can I pause you there? I'm curious though. When was the first time that your team noticed, hey, Kubernetes, you know, really growing in adoption? We need to integrate with it. We need to work well with it. Like how soon from when you first noticed this growth to finally you were all ready and good to start using this within your ecosystem? Like how fast was that?
Well, that predates me when we decided to launch it. We launched it just as I was coming on board here in 2019. So I suspect late 2017 or 18. Took us a year or so to get it up and running. And then we've had massive adoption since then. It's a big driver of growth. But to your point on serverless, we launched App Platform in the fall, which is much more of a PaaS tool for doing a similar thing around code deployment. Where it's decoupled completely from the infrastructure. So you do configuration, you launch your application, we manage the infrastructure on the back end. So that's our first step in serverless, if you will, and moving in the direction of having more what I call the softwareization of infrastructure, where we're taking off the plate. Many of our customers and potential customers are developers. They can do a lot of code, but they're also now CEOs and they have other hats that they have to wear. So they need to go faster. And our app platform, just in a matter of less than 6 months, has almost 10,000 customers on it. And so we've seen really rapid adoption as people look to get more productive on our platform.
That's excellent. Talking about more of your customers, I think the key question that a lot of people have right now, even in the audience, is customer data security. How do you make this user experience seamless? I think the question very specifically is, are you encrypting everything at rest? If so, what type of encryption is used for data at rest?
I don't have the exact answer on that, but let me tell you, we spend about 2.5% of our revenue on security, which may not mean anything to it. What's that?
Is that enough?
Well, it's never enough and it's always too little, right? And so what I would say is I've been involved with large companies, substantially larger technology companies, have sat on the board of some of them that weren't spending at the rate that we're spending at. One of the biggest positive surprises I had when I came on board here in the summer of 2019 19 was meeting with our security team and looking at all the business process, how we've embedded security in the product, and how we're adding to that. And so we have a lot of security. We have a lot of data integrity at the core of our value proposition. And one of the reasons people cross over from just being developed on DO, which used to be sort of just a sentiment, to I can build and grow on DO, is because of this investment in security. So we have a roadmap. It's active. It's a significant amount. We're actually probably we're investing. We have dozens of people on this. This is vital to our value proposition.
How
We
big is your
understand when
security
you
team?
come to. I'm sorry.
How big is your security team?
Well, it's dozens of people, but one of the things that's really important, when we understand that when you come to DigitalOcean to start something, whether it's just to test an idea or build a business, the reality is you're putting the trust in us. You said earlier, you used to, 20 years ago, you would go buy everything and do it all yourself. When you go to the cloud, there's a huge equation, and the equalizer is around trust. We're selling trust, and we understand that. So we are embedding security in all aspects of the product in terms of the data. I don't have the specific answer. If we get the question, I can get the detail, but rest assured, this is a core value proposition with us. And by the way, we compete not just with big cloud, but with smaller competitors who are lower price than us. And one of the reasons we continue to grow our share of businesses and get a price premium is because of our investment in security, in the global scale, and the reliability of our platform.
I mean, I believe you. It's a huge reputational risk, and I mean, I'm sure that there's not a single CEO who sleeps easy at night, knowing that there are these threats out there. In fact, today's news from Apple. Now, the White House is setting up a whole ransomware task force. This is where we are today as a world, as a society, that the government has a ransomware task force because these are mission critical events that happen. So I'm sure your team is on top of that, but clearly it's on top of mind for customers as well. Another prospective customer wants to get your take on edge computing. And is DigitalOcean planning to launch any new products related to edge computing or expand into markets with smaller deployments to capture this demand?
Yeah, so edge is top of mind for us. We, as part of our app platform launch last fall, we went deeper with our partnership with Cloudflare to leverage more of their edge functionality. So we have partnerships with StackPath as well. So edge is a core aspect to what we offer, and I think we'll expand that over time, both in terms of adding to our data center infrastructure footprint. So having more of a global footprint. We're already in 14 different places. We'll continue to add and infill, so that adds to that value proposition as well. And then looking to partner and or potentially launch our own specific products to continue to give customers what they want, which is have more edge capability to be more responsive in serving their customers.
I bet as a CEO of a tech company, you never quite imagined that you would be sitting here answering questions about power, energy, and sustainability. But I'm going to ask you nonetheless. You just mentioned 14 data centers around the world: India, US, UK, Switzerland, Canada, you name it. How are your power costs, and how are you thinking about it in the future, especially as all of these conversations, come in about how intensive the energy requirements are for technology as the world goes more digital, more cloud services? How are you going to go green, if at all?
Well, we're going to be talking more about this publicly in terms of the stats around our capability. I will say this, because we get customers asking about it. I'm actually very proud. The vast, all but one of our data centers is pretty green. One, we're working on it, and when we launched we took the 1% pledge, or pledge 1% challenge when we went public, which is we contributed 1% of our IPO valuation into a charitable strategy, which we call Holly's Hub for Good, and that involves leveraging our infrastructure to promote STEM education and helping people in communities use our infrastructure to solve problems, for example, related to the pandemic. one of the things we're also going to do is about green and in making sure that as we add and manage this growing infrastructure service, that we are committed to be neutral to the planet. So more to come on that, but rest assured today we're pretty good, not perfect, but we've identified where we're at. We know as we add to this that we are going to be doing it in a way that's friendly to the planet.
I bet it hits home as well. You're in scenic Colorado and it's freezing in the month of April. There's something not quite right. So clearly that factors into your day-to-day management and decision making.
Yeah, for us, it always starts with customers, employees, and investors. That's our ecosystem. And, we have to be good stewards of community. And the community is bigger than just us. It's the top of our values. And our community is our customers, it's our employees and our investors. And so we want to make sure that we're mindful of all of those folks in the broader context of community. And this topic is central to that.
Yancey, talking about community, one of our listeners wants to know if you have any plans of expanding into emerging markets like South America, Indonesia, Mexico.
Yeah, without talking about specific countries, as you mentioned earlier, Sameepa, about we're 70% of our revenues outside the U.S. And in fact, we look a lot like global internet use and global GDP, where our customers and where we get revenue. And so we have a global footprint now. We're in sort of the tier 1 markets across Europe, Asia. We're going to look to infill that. We'll have more to say about that as we get to the back half of this year. But certain markets in South America, Africa is some place we're looking hard at, and other places in Asia where there's a lot of growth, and will make our network more robust and also help us with local go-to-market efforts is certainly top of mind. We're working on that diligently right now, and we'll have some specifics to communicate in terms of where we're going to be adding on the network as we get to the end of back half of this year.
So for the listener who asked that question, Africa, I bet you didn't expect that to come out. Continuing this theme, actually, someone wants you to add color on how your experience was growing in India, talking of emerging technology markets.
Well, we saw some, the investment in Bangalore has been amazing. We put a data center there, we put a team, we have support, engineering, and go-to-market folks there. And, it's one of our top 10 markets. And, we don't quote revenue in individual countries, but it's grown pretty substantially. And it's a hub for us in terms of our Asia presence. And we continue to invest there in terms of adding people, adding capabilities. And it's been an incredible journey for us. And, I think as a US-based company, we have to be very mindful. I mean, we're 30% of our employees are outside the US, and 70% of our revenue is outside the US. We're a global company in terms of customer footprint. We have to work a lot on being a global company in terms of how we think. Right. And India has been a huge help in having, a core set of team members that are there just in terms of how we operate. And we're investing there. And we're adding quite a few people outside the US to look more like where our customers are, to support go-to-market, to maintain follow the sun support, and also make sure that we have folks local or around infrastructure. So adding people outside the US is really important. And it's different. Things are run differently in India, and the growing pains that we all have starting companies here in the US, you just multiply that as you internationalize the company. This is a big push for us. I don't know that we'll ever have our employee headcount match where our revenue is, but it needs to be a lot closer to that 70% than the 30% it is now.
I think this brings me to a fabulous new point that's been a touchstone in so many different ways for tech leaders: diversity and inclusion. How do you think about that? How do you build around it? Because technology obviously knows no boundaries. Clearly, in your case, you have active customers everywhere. So put your management hat on for me, Yancey, and tell me, DigitalOcean, through all of your experiences, how are you actively thinking about diversity and inclusion in terms of your hiring practices, in terms of existing employees and their movement? Like, how should a future leader be thinking about it?
Well, it's vital to our strategy. When you think about who we serve the world, and so we have to have a culture and people on the DO team who value the world. And one of our core values is around what we say is we say something, we speak when we have something to say, and we listen when others do. And that's about inclusion. That's about diversity. That's about transparency. But it's about, we have a massive opportunity here. I mentioned earlier, over 150 logos, if you will, between startup businesses, small and medium-sized businesses, and developers all over the world. It's a massive opportunity. We're just under $350 million exiting last year. This is a multi-billion-dollar opportunity in terms of revenue. We need the best and the brightest, and we need them to be here. And we want them to feel like this is a place that they can be themselves.
When you say we need them to be,
the business.
Sorry, Yancey, when you say we need them to be here, do you mean here in the United States or here at DigitalOcean?
Here at DigitalOcean. We want people here, and we want them to know that when they're here, they can be their best selves. We think this is a career-defining experience for every one of us, because the opportunity is so massive to enable entrepreneurs all over the world to go test an idea and build, realize a dream. And so we want our folks to feel like they have every right and every ability to be themselves and reach that potential. And so for me, that is diversity and inclusion. And so
how do you make your employees feel like they can be themselves in the workplace? What does that mean for their day-to-day work, where they work from, how they work, culture?
Yeah, you have to invest. You get the culture you invest in. Cultures just don't sort of back up. No one backs up a culture truck and says, "Do you want door number A, door number B?"
Well said.
Start with the first person, and it builds every day. And so we're very focused on communication. We talk constantly about our mission, which is to simplify cloud computing, so our customers can change the world, to build software to change the world. Our values are always front and center. We always talk about customer, employee, and investors. And we always talk about our key priorities. And we have a lot of communication. We have metrics, we have goals, we're investing in the three imperatives of our business, which are around grow faster, because it's a big opportunity, grow smarter, let's build efficiency and scale, and grow together, which is building a culture that scales to the opportunity so that every one of us can have this career-defining experience. So to me, culture is all of those things: where we're going, why we exist, how we behave, our values, what we measure, what's important, customers, employees, and investors, and then what's important in terms of driving us to our vision and the realization of our potential, which is we need to grow faster, we need to accelerate growth, we need to build efficiency and scale, because we're a public company, we need to generate cash flow, and we need to invest in our people. Our people is our business. And so culture for us is, and diversity and inclusion is, everybody's part of that. They all get to hear the same thing, and we are open and we're honest. We have an Ask Us Anything session, now that we're public, once a month, but give us feedback. And when we see people not living our values, we act on that. And we've invested, one of our core things around Grow Together has been making our values alive in the company. So every time we interview somebody, they're being interviewed against the lens of our values. Can they be accretive to our company? Every time we promote, give someone a raise, give someone a bonus, it's not just what you do, but it's how you do it.
Do you publish your diversity metrics and pay?
We have not published them publicly. We will do so this year.
Okay. Now I want you to put on your management hat for a little bit. And you and I were discussing this yesterday. How does a non-suit but a sweater wearing person come into a company that's run by hoodies and then lead them? I mean, clearly this is a situation where the startups, the Uretsky brothers were there. They created the foundation of this wonderful company. You come in as an outsider. what do you as an individual need to do in that interview and afterwards to earn the respect of the people that you work with so that they can actually buy into your vision or collectively come together with a vision? How do you do that?
Yes, it's one of the hardest things to do in any company is come after the founders, because as we talked about with culture, the culture exists. And one of the things I learned when I joined Digital Globe many years ago after the founding, if we had product market fit, and it was about how do you scale it to the potential, is outsiders don't come in and change the culture because they want to change the culture. The culture is what it is. Question is, how do we shape it and scale it? And I told Ben when I met him that my goal would be that in 10 years time, we'll go ring the bell on our 10-year anniversary of the New York Stock Exchange.
And you did.
Yeah, well, that was 18 months. Now we got 9 months. I told him to put it on his calendar for nine more years, or 10 years from now. But I told him my goal would be to scale the company to its multi-billion-dollar potential. But when you talk to the folks who will be at DigitalOcean at that time, you'll be like, that's the people, from the company I started. And I think that you have to be intentional about it. And, when to come in as an outsider, you have to be transparent. You have to keep it simple, and you have to explain why there is change. There has to be change. What gets you to 50 million or 100 million in revenue and 200 employees and a couple 100,000 customers won't get us to $1 billion or 2 billion of revenue, or 1 million or 2 million customers. It just won't. You have to have process. You have to prioritize differently. You have financial constraints that you're going to impose. And you have to explain that to people in a way that makes sense, and be consistent and be transparent with them. So that's been my formula across a number of different companies. I have some of the answers. I don't have all. I've met with, as many employees as I can to get there, and I asked them 3 simple questions when I joined.
Yeah.
Well, what's working? And don't come in here and screw that up. Don't change it. Tell me 3 things. What are 3 things that should change right now, immediately? Go change them. And the third question is, I'm a newcomer to this company. Give me advice on how to succeed.
That is fascinating. That will lead you to some place that is truthful. And I see Kira's bright face up on the screen with cacti behind her, which clearly is an indication that our time's run up. But you and I could continue to talk, and NYETM has been fabulous. So is this the end of our wonderful fireside, Kira?
Yes, thank you so much. I've been voted by the Workbench team. I'm always the bearer of bad news to come in and tell everyone that time has ended.
That's what explains the cacti behind her.
But thank you so much, Yancey and Sameepa, for the time. It's been such an exciting time for DigitalOcean right now, and then for New York Enterprise Tech, of course. So it's been great having your time today. And for anyone else looking to join our New York Enterprise Tech Meetup for future meetups, sign up for our Enterprise Weekly newsletter if you haven't already. We have 10s coming up, 1 a month. So look out for those. And thank you so much.
Most welcome. Thanks all for joining.
Thanks, Sameepa. Thank Workbench.